Hey, Kevin Lawrence here. Hope you're having a great day. I just finished recording a webinar on mental health and resilience and building resilience. So right after this, you'll get to see it. But I just want to say this is an important topic, and my hope is to share it with lots of other people so people are informed, don't feel judged, and have tools when their brain starts to implode a little bit and they get burnt out, or their battery gets drained and might not be thinking straight, or the stress is just getting to them. So anyway, hope you enjoy the webinar, and you'll walk through, and I'm walking through all the slides and visuals, and I'll walk you through it. Hope you find it valuable. If there's something else we can help you with, just reach out. All the best. All right, well, hey, let's jump right in. We're talking about resilience today. It is Mental Health Month, and mental health is always important, but it's Mental Health Month right now, and I want to get into this. And this is an important webinar. Encourage you at the end. We will send a link out with a recording and encourage you to, share it with people in your family or your friends that might benefit from this, because mental health has all kinds of stigmas attached to it, and a lot of it is a misunderstanding. And that's what I've learned throughout my career, and I want to share a bunch of that with you today. So we're talking about building sustainable resilience. There's a section in your Oxygen Mask First, which was published now like 8 years ago, that gets into it. And that's two of the chapters we're going to kind of dig into, and I'll jump in. But we know this journey of growth in companies that most of us are a part of is exciting, and it's very, very rewarding, and it creates a catalyst or for our own growth as well. And we always want to kind of keep growing up to the right in terms of our capabilities and responsibilities and the quality of our life. But in reality, inside, actual growth has these curves where not everyone kind of gets to go to the next level, because whether it's the stress or the pressure or the performance, individually or as a business, it's hard. And those growth spurts are really, really painful. And some people don't get it. Their growth path gets interrupted, where the stress is too much, or the business, from a business perspective, it's too much. And that's, sometimes it's because someone's in the wrong job or the wrong gig. Sometimes they don't have the right tools or the right understanding. And I'm hoping to give some more of the right tools or understanding today, and helping people to learn, defy what I call the gravity of growth, to keep going and be able to keep thriving like a plane going in the air for a long, long time, ideally for our whole life, or our whole career. And that's really the reality. As people are growing, just like at companies, there's this ideal growth rate that we would like to be on. Sometimes it's unsustainable. It's too much, too hard, too stressful. And sometimes it gets stagnated or declines. And we're trying to stay in that green zone our whole life. Ideally, that's what most of us want. And so if you could drop into the chat, we're going to get a few things for you to drop into the chat here today. But why is sustainable growth so rare? What is it about continuing to grow as a person? Why is that sustainable growth so rare in your mind or from your perspective? So if you want to just drop into the chat anything that you're thinking, if you'd like to. Why is it hard to sustainably continue to grow and become better, or take on, more responsibility, more stress, whatever it happens to be? Yeah. Lots of different things, and from what my perspective, and I've seen again and again, but normally it's hard. It's hard on the ego, because you have to learn so much. You need to have that beginner's mind, and it's stressful. And for a lot of people, they prefer not to have the stress. So we're going to do our first poll. And do you believe that stress is hurtful or helpful? What do you believe in your mind? Is stress hurtful or helpful? So if you want to take a second, vote for what you think. Is it more hurtful or helpful? It's fun. I love these polls, watching the live feedback come in. There is a winner at this point, and we'll give you just another minute or so. Once, twice. There we go. So the answer is, most of you believe that it is helpful. 64% believe it's helpful. And that is, in a lot of cases, stress is very helpful. It helps to drive performance until it's too much. Like, it's almost until it becomes the straw that breaks the camel's back, to use that old metaphor. And then it can be very, very hurtful and damaging, but it helps to drive performance for sure. And for a lot of us, we're trying to keep our eye on what's important and everything that's going on. But sometimes the stress gets so much that we can't see clearly. We lose our way, we lose our path. And it can really start to scare people because their cognition can fade and other things can get messed up where they can't see clearly, can't make good decisions, and it's a little overwhelming. And if I go back to, this is an old picture, back when I had more hair and dark hair. At 24, I burnt out for the first time seriously. I was a young guy in the ad industry. I was working hard, performing very well at my job, involved in a couple of volunteer boards, and partying pretty hard on the weekends. And it was a great time in my life until I hit the wall so hard and burnt out. And it took me a couple of years to recover, and I didn't understand it. Thought maybe something was wrong with me, whatever it was. And I was a super high performer in the role that I was in, and I had been for a lot of my life. And I learned a lot during that, including advice from my boss that I probably shouldn't have listened to. And his advice was go get a big mortgage. And I wasn't smart enough to buy a house at that point, which I should have back in Vancouver in those days. That would have been a great choice. But I got a line of credit, racked up my credit cards, and I still wasn't motivated. I still didn't want to get up and go to work in the morning. I was so cooked. And I learned a lot through that. And it made me very, very curious about how do high performers continue to thrive while some other people seem to burn out or give up or whatever it happens to be. And it led me to this question, which is really the question behind your oxygen mask first. And so there's a lot of very famous, highly regarded people who not only burnt out, but they got to the point where their mind was so messed up, they made the choice to end their life early, which is really, really sad and unfortunate. And there's a story in the book about Elvis, which you can read in the book, but it's like these people, unfortunately, just got to the point where they couldn't see a path back. And there always is a path back, but they couldn't see it. And that's what I want to help you understand today. So I'll give an example of a CFO that I worked with that can't think straight. Oh, and thank you for the note. I see that the chat is disabled. I'm not sure why, but Janice, see if you can open up the chat. That would be great. But so this CFO was an amazing CFO, one of our clients. He was thriving. And during COVID, a whole bunch of things were happening in his personal life. And the work was stressful, but where he completely burnt out. And he couldn't think straight. Like when I would talk with him, he only had like half his brain. He couldn't get work done. He used to be great at doing it. It's almost like his system got short-circuited or almost like if it was the electric car, the batteries drained and wouldn't recharge. And it took him a long time to recover. Ultimately, he needed to move on to a different company because he burnt so many bridges. I'm a big fan of his, but he burnt bridges where he was because the performance just didn't make the mark, even though he was a good guy. It happens to all, and he was a high performer. And we've worked with people, these are like where we have clients. We have clients all around the world, and we've been playing this game for a long time. And we see it again and again. The most high performing executives have challenges with burnout just as much as everybody else. This is just our team who's, lots of our team is also very well versed on mental health. But the root of it is, and because we've had to learn about mental health because of the people that we work with. If the leaders can't scale, the company won't grow. It's up to us to make these companies thrive. But sometimes the weight of it gets us. Oxygen Mask First has a whole bunch of stuff about this, and that's about scaling ourselves. Scaling up, the other book that I wrote, a huge portion of, is about scaling the companies. And then the 4 Forces of Growth is more about enduring growth of us and our teams, which will be coming out later this year or next year. But what we're going to talk about, what we focus on a firm, is helping the CEOs develop and grow, and then driving that growth strategy. But under the people pillar, which we call ACEs and key seats, this is about us staying in the zone where we're high performing and thriving as the company grows and under pressure. So there's a worksheet that Janice will drop into the chat for you, so you can access this worksheet and have a copy of it, and feel free to share it, and it'll have these images on it. And I'm going to drop into the section in the last page of it, which if it's not working now, we'll send you afterwards. But it's about mental health. And at the root of this, I believe in building sustainable resilience, and I believe it's something that needs to be built. We have a level of it, and different people have different levels, but you can always build it and strengthen it so you can handle more stress and more challenging situations. And so this is the gravity of growth. It's not in the book. I came up with this afterwards, but it's this balance between stress and performance. And as you see, performance is vertical and stress is horizontal. You need there to be a certain amount of stress for high performance. All of us, like under stress, it's like the cramming for the exam works for some people or lots of people, me. But the sweet spot where we do our best work at that peak, there is quite a bit of stress. The problem is it's hard to control whether it's on the left side or the right side. And it's always like you're always going to kind of slip off that peak if you're not careful. And when it's boring or you're bored or you're not quite as engaged, you can always take on more responsibility. That's easier. It's the other side when you start to slip down the burnout side. And if you don't deal with it, you can slide right into that meltdown where the stress just starts to get you. And that's where it becomes very dangerous. And that picture I showed of those famous people who no longer are with us, they got past meltdown into these crisis spaces. And in those moments of crisis, sometimes they make very poor decisions because they're not working with a full deck. And so there's this thing called mental health continuum, which I'll share in a moment, but it shows as your mental state goes from healthy to reacting to injured to ill, when you start sliding towards that red zone. And sometimes it's a surprise and it sneaks up on you. So I want to teach you about that today so you can see it and understand it for you, for your family, and other people you care about. So if we can pop up the next poll, where are you on this curve right now? Are you bored, engaged? Are you in your sweet spot? Yeah, maybe a bit of burnt out, or are you melting down, like where there's some, some serious challenges going on that are getting to you? I'm not sure with you where I've been in all the places. I've been everywhere on this curve, and I continue to be. Although today I'm actually in a decent spot, but you never know. All right, we're seeing a bit. During COVID, it was fascinating. There was extremes on this. In COVID, it was very stressful. And I mean, in COVID, I got into the meltdown phase. There was always some people in burnout and meltdown during COVID. We see not as much. I mean, it happens, but great. All right, thanks for your feedback. So what we got here, engaged 64%, sweet spot 14, and then burnout 21. That's a pretty normal, natural state where people move through this stuff continually. The thing I wanted to get is that all of us are one or two life events away from a mental health issue. One or two life events away from getting into the burnout or the meltdown. It doesn't matter who you are. It's not a genetic weakness. It's not, you're not capable. It's human beings with too much stress get pushed over the edge a little bit. Everyone does. And I've seen the strongest, most capable CEOs, executives, leaders that I work with get affected just like everyone else. And a bit of worry, I'm talking about mental health. And if it makes you uncomfortable, that's, I can understand if you don't want to hear some of the stuff or plug your ears for it. It's not going to be horrible. It's just, it's a serious topic. So I'm going to share this thing called the mental health continuum that was developed by the mental health associations of different parts of the world. And just has you understand what happens when your brain gets in trouble. And how it affects your mood, your thinking, your behavior, your body, and then your coping mechanisms, which all of us have, which can, the coping mechanism sometimes can really accelerate. So I'll walk you through a little bit. And again, that's on the last page of the handout that is in the link. So the main thing, green, is a normal state, a healthy state, and your mood is good, and you're calm and take things in stride. Your mindset's good, your performance is good, your brain's working properly, you're sleeping properly, your energy's good, your normal amount of social interaction, whatever that is for you, and whatever your coping mechanism or addiction is, it's at a moderate state. And what you got to understand with this, like, I had a client and he was a guy who had 2 martinis every single day, right? And that doesn't mean that he has a problem. That means he has 2 martinis a day. That doesn't mean that that's an alcohol issue, if indeed it isn't. When he got to 8, the change from 2 to 8 was he had a problem. Or if someone sometimes is a little bit anxious, just because you're a little bit anxious does not mean you have a mental health issue, or you have problems sleeping. That's not a mental health issue. It's a change from your normal healthy state that is different, shows that your brain is probably going in, or the stress is getting to you. So if we look at, these are all the normal states. And when we're looking at this, it goes, when the key is when it changes, one second here. When it changes, that's when you're in trouble. So when we go from green, normal, everyday, healthy, things are good. It's kind of like you start reacting when you shift towards yellow, and it's like you got a sprained ankle. Like your brain is sprained a little bit, and you can still walk and do what you need to if it was physical, but it's okay, but you're a little bit damaged. And in yellow, you go from normal mood to you might be a little bit more impatient or irritable. Your work, you go from performing well, where you might having some displaced sarcasm. It's an indicator, or you might be a bit overwhelmed. Your cognition is starting to get affected a bit. Sleep starts to show. Sleep is a big indicator. And energy, your energy might be affected a bit. And then social activity, you generally start to be less social. Even the social people become less social. And then in terms of coping, the addictions start. If you my client that was a 2 martini a day guy might be having 3. It's not up to 8, but things are starting to change and you're roughed up a little bit, but you're okay. Then when it goes from yellow to injured, where you're in trouble, it's like you broke your ankle and you got to go to the hospital. You got to get help. And when you get into the orange zone, normally people need to then start talking to a counselor or a psychologist to get help so they can get back to green. You can always get back to green, but here you need a bit of a medical intervention. And with our brains, we often need a psychological intervention. So mood goes from normal to angry. Anxiety kicks in for some people, and everyone's different. You don't get them all. These are variables that show up. People might be sad or negative or hopeless. Work gets affected, and whether it's concentration or performance, you cannot perform as well. Sleep notably starts to show up. Body might be more achy or fatigued. Social changes. Those people that are in the orange zone don't respond as much and aren't as engaged socially, and they start to disappear a bit. And then whatever the coping mechanism is, alcohol, shopping, whatever it happens to be, it starts to kick in and it notably accelerates. This is going from 2 martinis to 4 or 5, whatever it happens to be, or whatever the choice that person makes. So at this point, you generally need some help. And you'll get back to green. You just work on it. You'll get back there. When you get to the red zone, it's like being sick. This is like being in a car crash, having multiple broken bones. You need surgery. You need physio to recover. You need doctors' care and attention to get back to your healthy state. And this is the stuff people, what a jerk. They've got road rage. No, they're probably in the red zone, and that's the angry outbursts or aggression. Panic attacks are a huge indicator of red zone. People get depressed. People have suicidal thoughts. And here's the really important thing to understand. People have suicidal thoughts mostly because they don't believe they can get back to green and be a healthy, productive member of their family, their company, or their society. They lose hope. And that's why the red zone is dangerous and you need help, because they start to have these thoughts that aren't true, but then they act on them and end up hurting themselves. Overinsubordination, can't focus, can't do their jobs. Cognition, like basically in the red zone, you're working with 50 to 60% of your normal cognition. And all these executives and CEOs tell me in this zone, and I've experienced it too, it scares them because they're starting to lose this. And this is what they pride themselves on in their world, or they use the most. It's very normal for cognition to drop. Sleep is messed up. Body is fatigued, often getting sick. Socially, they disappear. And then whatever their coping mechanism of choice is, it's out of control. Like during COVID, I would just look at the amount of Amazon boxes showing up at my place and empty bottles of red wine, because I was drinking more red wine than I did probably ever in my life. And those are indicators. So there's lots of, one of the CEOs he worked with almost gave his business away when he was in that red zone. He was just fed up with it. I don't want to do this anymore. And he was literally going to give away a business so he didn't have to deal with the stress of it anymore. People have all kinds of irrational thoughts because they're in so much pain and the coping mechanisms aren't working. They can't get themselves back to a good place. And in many ways, they believe they're permanently screwed. So the red check marks, this is me during COVID. And here's the thing I want you to understand. I understand this stuff. I've taken the mental health first aid course. I teach on this stuff. And still during COVID, it snuck up on me. I didn't realize I was in the red zone. I was so focused on helping my clients and supporting my team through COVID to thrive and taking care of my family. I didn't realize I was there. And I'll give you an example. I was a place called Kelowna, 4 hours from where I am. It's almost like the Palm Springs of Western Canada. lake country, winery, all this stuff. And I know some of you are like Erna and others are familiar with that place. And so we spent a lot of time there. And I was up there. We're having dinner in a nice restaurant with my family. And there's 8 of us. And they were splitting us up and putting us in separate tables. And because of COVID. And so the kids are at one table, myself and my sister and some others are at the adult table. My daughter's 15. She starts crying and getting upset because she can't decide what's going on for dinner, which that's a 15-year-old girl. That's where she was at. So I went over to the table to try and help her because my daughter is upset and crying and trying to help her figure out her dinner. Well, the waiter gets up and says, no, you can't go to that table, sir, because of the COVID regulations. I'm like, my daughter's crying. I'm going to that table. And then the manager came over and tried to tell me I couldn't help my crying daughter figure out her dinner. And at some point, and I am not a violent person, I am seeing myself standing and holding myself back from not taking a swing at and punching the manager in the face because I was so angry that he was telling me. And he was following the rules. To me, it wasn't reasonable, but I didn't have control over myself or enough logic and proper cognition to think I'm going to make the problem worse. I was just raging with anger. Didn't hit him. And I had another one with a road rage incident where I also acted like a complete idiot and was completely wrong because I was in the red zone. And all of these things were absolutely true. And for me, like the coping mechanism was alcohol. I was working crazy hours, drinking more than I normally did. And because one of my passions has been racing cars, I was racing cars, racing go-karts. It was like full adrenaline, like every natural drug possible was pumping through my system. As I was just trying to cope, and I was hanging out with my friends, which was fun. But the point of it is, I understand this like the back of my head, and it still got me. And I was able to get back to green, talking to a counselor, getting some help to get there. This is just a normal part of the game. So what I'd like to say, a question I'd like to ask you on the poll is like, where are you today? If you would look at this, where would you say that you are today? Okay, another one, almost at 80%. Awesome. Thank you for sharing. And so if we look at this, there's 44% green, 38% yellow, which is great. The injured and ill, there's 13, so almost 19% of you injured and ill. My advice, number one, is if you're in the orange zone, you should be working with a counselor or psychologist. And same with the red zone, you must be. Like, it's the path. It's the way to help you. And what I have a policy for anyone, if you're in the red zone and you don't know what to do and you can't think straight, email me, text me. I will always talk to someone and help someone with that because it's a scary place and people are unsure what to do. What I will tell you is you can always get back, but you need help, particularly in the red zone. The red zone is very, very risky. So the solution to all of this is this thing called ALGEE, which is from the Mental Health First Aid Program, is that when someone is in trouble, you've got to go through this process where basically assess for risk of suicide or harm because we don't want someone to hurt himself. Listen, give reassurance and information. The only reassurance and information I recommend is the mental health continuum. This is normal. And then next step, get the appropriate professional help. If they're in orange, encourage counselor, psychologist. If you don't have one, go to your doctor. And if they're in red, like get them to an expert today. Get yourself to an expert today. And there's mental health hotlines everywhere in the world. A lot of companies have employee assistance programs where you have access to counselors for free. But basically, get help. No different than if I fell and broke my leg, someone's going to take me to the ER. You need to go to the mental version of the ER. So suicide prevention line, if someone's in their life is at risk, you can call them or just take them to the ER. Employee assistance we talked about. There's also a great program you can take as a leader. It's called Mental Health First Aid. It's like the cheapest training you can do, and it's really good. And it walks you and your team can do the same through some of the stuff to understand what to do to help people. Problem is, when people are having a mental health challenge, they don't want to talk to their boss about it. They sure as heck don't want to talk to HR. Sorry to the HR people on here, because they don't trust, because they're feeling vulnerable. They don't want to be judged. And they don't want to, lose opportunities to their job because they're perceived as being weak. They're not weak. They just need to build some strength because they hit a bump on the road. It's like they twisted their ankle. They're not a bad human, but people are afraid to because of the stigma. So I will just share with you in the last week, last Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, I had 3 conversations. It's not always like this, but I had a high performing executive that was amazing, and they were just burnt out, having panic attacks. Had a conversation with them. I had a CEO we work with that one of my team works with, but the CEO was losing his mind, raging, ready to fire everybody in the company. Had a call with him and got him back on track. And then an overwhelmed entrepreneur that was really in the red zone, who's a great guy, but the business is in big trouble and just needed some help. But when you're in the red zone, things aren't going so well. So this is like 3 days in a row. Maybe it's because it's mental health month. I don't know. I don't know what's going on, but these are real world scenarios, and these are all very high performing people who hit the red zone and needed some help. It's very normal. So I'm not going to go into the details on this, but there is a couple of stories on our site. And one, the image isn't showing at this moment, but and Janice will put the link in. But a guy named Michael, who's from this place called Kelowna. I met him out on the boat, on his boat with some friends. And he called me when he was in trouble. And I'm going to fix this. 1 second. I want to fix this graphic so I can show it to you, because he, 1 second here. There we go. And there we go. Michael, great guy. And long story short, he ended up having to sell off his business in not an opportune time, but he got to the point where he was in the red zone on mental health. And I said to him, so are you having any thoughts of hurting yourself or suicidal thoughts? He's like, yep. And the main thing about his story, and you can listen to the whole video, part of what he did is wanting to help other people after he went through it. One of the things that he said that was the hardest part, he was deeply connected in his church community. He was in a CEO group with a bunch of CEOs and everything else. But because he always portrayed such a strong, I've got it together, stiff upper lip type personality, nobody really ever thought that he might be in deep trouble inside. He was surrounded by support, but because he wasn't showing people how hard it was, no one actually checked on him. And I checked on him, and he really needed help. And and he's been all good. He's been all good. He had to work through it, but it's good. And we support him through some changes. But people didn't ask, and whether they saw it and didn't want to ask, I don't know, or they just didn't even see it. But either way, he was in crisis, like deep crisis, and he talks about it in the story. And he almost took his life. And it was all solvable. And a super smart entrepreneur built a great company. In the moment, didn't see it. So my whole thing here is to break this stigma. Everyone deals with this. This is part of the game that we're playing, just like a sprained ankle, and it's normal. Product manager, executive I worked with, one of the top executives I've ever been able to work with in my career in another country. He was amazing, driving a massive project. But when people were not cooperating, and he was super burnt out, he's starting to have medical issues, and things were getting frustrating. At one point, he just lost it in a meeting and started yelling and screaming at everyone. And he's way smarter than that. But he was in the red zone, and we had to do a lot of repair to go and fix after. He had to do a lot of apologizing and cleaning things up. But he couldn't control it. It was just too much. It was like the pressure relief valve went off in the middle of the meeting. So when you see someone in these states, you got to have a chat with them, go for a walk with them, have a chat, talk to them and help understand what's really going on. Sometimes in the state, you can't do it in the office in a transactional meeting. It's like, hey, let's grab a coffee. Let's go for a walk. Because you could normally see it when people are in the red zone if you pay attention when they've moved. Things change. They'll look a little bit rougher. They won't be taking care of themselves. Their behavior will change. Normally, there's indicators, or if you just look at the gravity of what they're facing. But there's a mistake that we all make is that we try to make them feel good, but we normally end up giving them a backhand. Oh, you should be grateful for what you have. And there's starving kids in Africa. And, oh, but you got a good job and a good family. You should be fine. It actually makes them feel worse and makes them feel judged. The biggest thing we can do is empathize with them and say, it sounds hard. Let's get you help. It sounds hard. Let's get you help. That is the best thing you can do. But that's why friends and family normally are not the best people to go to in these times, because they want to cheer you up and do things, and it doesn't help. The thing I tell people again and again when I talk to them, this is normal. I've seen it hundreds of times, and unfortunately will see it hundreds of times again, It's just what happens in the game that we play. So the solution is, the biggest thing is to build resilience. And that's why the title of the book, Put Your Oxygen Mask On First, is how do you better build your resilience? If you were an electric car, how do you charge yourself up better so you can handle more drain? This is Tina Lee, CEO of T&T Supermarkets, which is an Asian grocery chain in Canada, now in the US as well. But what Tina said when we were talking about this, you have to continually develop and increase your professional stamina. That's what she calls it. I like the phrase, professional stamina. Many of us are like athletes in a game of business. So we just need to build it up and strengthen ourselves. So in the book, there's just 17 habits that build up that professional stamina and help you defy the gravity of growth and the stress going to it. And it breaks it into 4 categories. Things to do with your personal energy. Second, your clarity of your mind. Third, your team. The right team will make or break people. And we all know that. That is the one that can really, when someone's going down and in the red zone, there is often, not always, but often a team component. The team isn't meeting what they need. And then your own growth. How do you keep getting ahead of the game so you can get to the next level? So we've talked about the mental health piece, but now we're going to get into this, which is awareness. And if in doubt, go to a counselor. But now we're going to deal with the energy, which is about your resilience and how do you build more strength to handle more. There is an assessment you can do on the different habits in the book, and Janice will drop the link into the chat. And you can assess yourself on the 17 different habits and give you some guidance of which one to pick. And then there's videos and other things. And our site is full of resources on this stuff, articles, case studies of other CEOs that have been through all kinds of interesting and challenging things, podcasts. And this is Chris, the president of Top Grading, but there's lots of other interviews with experts and CEOs there. And there's videos for each chapter of the book if you want to learn more. Janice will also drop the link if you want a free copy of the audiobook or workbook. And I'm like, give it away to everyone. Give it to everyone in your company. I'm 100% happy with that. Use it as a resource for the development of your team. At the end of the day, the 17 habits are the 17 most common conversations and solutions that I've had with CEOs and execs in the last 30 years. It basically addresses 95% of the issues that a CEO or executive will have and how they need to learn, grow, and be more effective. So your energy, it's called doubling your resilience. And it's being really good at making time for the things that build and maintain your resilience. Build and maintain the strength of your physical body. Secondly, of your mind. And then thirdly, your spirit, or what inspires you and lights you up. And this is one of my favorite quotes from the book. There's no in between with this game that we're playing. Either it slowly destroys your life or forces you to get stronger. When a business gets bigger and your responsibilities get bigger, it's trying to crush you. And so you got to build strategies and capabilities to be able to sustain it. And if you don't build those strategies and capabilities, it'll make you think you can't do it. I believe that lots of people can always get to the next level. But if you don't have the right tools and systems and resources in place, it'll feel impossible when it can be possible. And to do this, and this is the key point of the whole book, you need to be consciously selfish to be sustainably generous. You have to charge the heck out of your batteries and build your strength if you want to give a lot to other people. If you want to be a great parent, you've got to be strong and resilient and charged up. If you want to be a great partner, you want to be a great manager, you want to be a great leader, you've got to be charged. And again, in the world of electric cars, like we're not going to leave on a road trip with an electric car charged at 4%. But unfortunately, in our work, sometimes we try to go and do great things, and we only have 4% of our energy. And it's like, it ain't going to work. It doesn't work. But here's the catch. Historically, we have been able to self-sacrifice and win. But what we don't realize is when we would self-sacrifice, we're self-sacrificing when we're charged at a 50 or 60% level, and we might drop to 30 or 40. But if you're already down at 30 or 20, and then you self-sacrifice, you end up at 0, and then you bonk, and then you end up in the red zone. So there's this thing called work-life balance. It's the dumbest concept ever. First of all, most people I know don't want it. We're not looking for the super balanced life because that's boring. But more than that, it's a totally flawed concept because it forgets about you. You are like the battery in the car. You are the energy source. You're the energy source that leads and drives at work. And you're the energy source that is a great influence on your family and your community. But if the energy source is depleted, everything else sucks. So that thinking, we miss ourselves. And we've got these variables. And the way I simply look at it, you got these three big variables. You got yourself, which is the energy source. Then you got work and you got life. And as we go along, they start to overlap. And when work and life get busier and better and good things, maybe you have kids, or you've got a bigger career, or your business is growing, we start to compromise on ourselves. All high performers do. We can't help ourselves. We will compromise to be so committed to the work and life. I just having a conversation with the CEO this morning, and when we talked about this, he goes, when he read the book, it was so clear to him that he actually was so committed to his life and his work that he self-sacrificed. He talked about how he's the healthiest he's been because he's now changed his roles, and he's sold. He's out of the CEO role and now on a board role, and it's easier for him to take care of himself. But we don't all have that option. We got to figure out how to take care of ourselves while this stuff's happening. So, and when the pressure really gets going, we really self-sacrifice. And next thing you know, we're trying to run on a fraction of the energy because we're so committed to our work and life. And when work and life become more demanding, we want to do it. We want to take care of it, especially when you've got big family commitments and things are happening. Like, one executive I was talking to, like, June's coming up. That's when all the stuff happens in their kids' school and they want to be there. It also happens to be the busiest month in the company that they're in. So the insurance policy, if we look at this, the biggest insurance policy to sustain your resilience and your growth is to make sure that you dedicate enough energy to yourself. 10, 20, 30% of your best energy has to be dedicated to yourself. And you got to try and prioritize yourself first. Again, you are the energy source. I know you know these things, but if you don't do this, you're way more likely to slip in the red zone and bonk. You still might anyways, but you're way more likely to because you're trying to do things on a battery that doesn't have a lot of charge. So in the book, we talk about this thing called resilience rituals. Basically, how do you charge yourself? And you got to look at them through your body, your mind, and your spirit. And almost every executive and leader that we talk to has something around exercise or nutrition. I mean, that's great. That's the body. You need that. Everyone knows it. And they usually need to do more than they're doing. Those aren't the ones that I'm most concerned about. It's the mind and the spirit that tend to be the ones that really people need to focus on because everyone's got a goal about exercise. So all three are important. And when I say spirit, I don't mean spirits. I mean, people love cocktails. I enjoy, wine, cocktail, all that stuff. And that could be a passion. It is one of the ones you have to be careful with because it can get out of control super fast. But hey, if that's your thing, do your thing. And for some people, the things that inspire them, whatever their religious text is, many leaders will have them be part of a study group, or they will spend some time listening or reading to their religious text every day or every week. And there's all these different things that we do that charge us up. One executive from Australia, we were talking about this yesterday, going gardening in his garden, in his vacation or his weekend place, gardening and working in it is therapy for him. And everyone's got these different things. One of the executives out of India that we work with, his is making the grass green, manually watering his grass every night to have the greenest grass where he lives. So it doesn't matter what it is, but there's these things that inspire you and charge your batteries. And when we do them, life gets better. And when we don't, it doesn't. This is Angela, one of our long-term clients, Angela from the CEO of Little Potato Company. And she loves cooking with her family. I love dinners with a bunch of friends, especially when we cook together. For me, writing is one of the best practices for my mind. It's a game changer for me when I write and clarify in 5-10 minutes a day. This is surfing. Those of you who've done lake surfing in that place called Cologne, lake surfing at night. I'm not quite sure if it's legal or not, but it's sure a heck of a lot of fun. You've got some friends, some music, and surfing in the dark is like a life-changing experience. Live music, beaches. Another a friend and CEO who we worked with for years from a company called Sage, the natural products company in Canada. He and I went and did California Superbike School together down in California. So motorsports, this is my son when he got his race license. Like I like those things. They make me feel good. So it doesn't matter what it is. The key is that you've got to get these things and figure out what energizes you and brings the best out of you. That's the resilience rituals. And when you do it enough, you stay inspired and you stay sharp and you're able to handle all kinds of things. And so for me, here's a version. I got to update this. This is my previous version in a published book, but working out 3 times a week, 6 in the morning, that is huge for me. And it's two to three times a week. I end up doing that consistently. And I have a trainer that helps because otherwise I won't work out as hard. And then other activities, walking, biking, hiking, whatever it is. Like this weekend, we got a couple of big hikes. We committed to doing a big hike in the summer. So we got to really make sure we're in great shape for it. Journaling and updating my to-do list is magic. And then experiences or adventures with loved ones. I'm a little bit less on the adrenaline than I used to be. But also listening to audiobooks also would be things on my updated list. I got to update this. So what I'd like you to do is to go and look at these resilience rituals. And if the chat is working, I don't know if we're able to activate that or not. But if you could just take a second and think of what is the number one thing for my body, the number one thing for my mind, and the number one thing for my spirit, or whatever lights me up and makes me feel inspired and energized. What are those number one things for you that really should be part of your resilience and are critical for your own resilience? So what you could do, I say the chat's not working. It might be too late to fix that. But just in the Q&A, use the Q&A tab. And thanks, Erna, for doing that. In the Q&A tab, you can just post of all those three, the body, mind, and spirit, whatever those top things are, what is the one that you know, if I do more of this, things are going to get better? So use the Q&A tab and drop in what you can. All right. Joy, I've got to put exercise. Yep. And what are some specific things that bring that out of you? Let's see if we got some other ones here. It's really interesting. I was just with a company yesterday and we did their quarterly strategic planning. Fitness and competitive sports. Yeah, that's a very common one. Thanks, Chris. Very common. People love it. And some people love to watch it. Some people love to play it. Calming my mind helps. So go for long drives, blast music. Yep. Thanks, Kelly. That's also driving for me is one of those things. Just whatever reason it does it. Yeah, audiobooks, driving. Other people, it'll be cooking. It'll be all kinds of things, but carving out and making time for these things. So the only challenge with this is, I don't recommend you go back after listening to this and go to your partner or your team and say, hey, I'm going to be way more selfish here. I need to charge myself, forget about you. That doesn't go well. It's not a good strategy. So one of our execs we work with said, hey, this is what we should do, is figure out what your resilience rituals are and whether it's your partner in life or partners at work, and figuring out what theirs are so that you can do. So one executive, his was playing soccer and his wife was yoga. So they found a way to, and they had kids. So they found a way to coordinate schedules so they both could get their resilience pieces in throughout the week and support each other rather than making it all about me, 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 me. So how do you work with the people around you? One, also to encourage them to do it, to take care of themselves. But two, to make sure that this isn't becoming a fully self-centered act, that it's a healthy version of selfishness where your intent is to take care of yourself to do better for others, but you also help other people to do the same. All right, building a resilience is the summary of this. Really, the key to thriving under the stress and challenges of building a great company is just more resilience. And resilience comes in those rituals. Resilience comes from having a better team, which is make yourself useless, one of the chapters in your Auction Mass First. It also comes from working in your sweet spot, which is another chapter. It also comes from learning more. And all the chapters in the book all drive to increasing your capability and resilience. So if you look at that, it's a guide. Pull out the chapter that's relevant to you and focus on that. I'm just touching on this one major piece here right now. So what's the most important resilience ritual for you to start or sustain? So that's the question I really want to leave you with, is that we're talking about this, but let's just say maybe you've got your workout routine nailed, but you need to focus on something else because that will make a difference. Whatever that happens to be. And so for me, by the way, the one that I need to put the extra energy into is my writing. My life is busy. I'm good with the exercise. I'm good on the nutrition. But the piece that I consistently miss is not getting enough writing. Now, I just finished writing another book, which consumed a lot of space, but that's different writing. To me, that's like cognitive work writing versus mentally grounding and focused journaling, I would call it, in terms of doing. So just think about what's that most important thing that you need to focus on. And it looks like the chat's now working. So if you could drop into the chat, what's the most important resilience ritual that you need to actually start or sustain doing that really will be the game changer for you? Final thoughts: growth is exciting and rewarding. And this is a picture that's meant to be kind of a reminder of my grandma who, lived into her late 80s, and she lived like she was in her 60s and 50s, and she was a riot. She went back to university at age 81 to study theology because she was interested in world religions. And she went and audited classes in university. And the thing I'd leave you with is that when you have that desire to live a great life and you consistently learn and grow, you're going to get better and better. And for whatever reason, some people at some point in their career stop learning and growing. And then they'll be more caught up in Netflix versus reading, a novel on history or something that's going to enhance how they understand the world and thrive in the world. So obviously you want to have a great time, and we all want to live our lives having a great time. But continuing to learn and stretch yourself and increase your capability is a real game changer, at least in my mind. So, hey, thank you for spending time with us today. And I really encourage you to think about two things. Who needs to understand this piece around mental health so they can destigmify what they might be experiencing, and how do you share that with them? You can share this webinar. You can share the mental health continuum. You can also share something like mental health first aid that might help. And if they actually need help, please get them to a psychologist or yourself to a psychologist. And then so that's for somebody else. And then for you, what do you need to do for yourself? Whether it's getting a psychologist or counselor, or maybe you just want to do something to build your own resilience, or you want to learn more about this. I don't know what it is. But whatever it is, I encourage you to do whatever seems right for you. And thank you for sharing your time with us today. Please share those with lots of other people. Like, this is not our core business. This is something that we have to be expert in because of the people that we serve and help to grow their companies. And we want them to make it through the journey and not become a victim of a challenging mental health situation. Thank you all very much. Hope you have an awesome day. And if you have any questions or situations I can help you with, please just send a note. I always will help with stuff around this stress and mental health. Never will charge for it. Happy to be of service if I can. Thank you very much. All the best.